could tell Baylor against Houston just had superior athletes. And I don't care how well you're coached, sometimes the other team is just better than you. And from the first whistle, Houston-Baylor, that one was not even a contest. You could just tell, Houston might have overshot their goal. They looked overmatched against Baylor. And that was just one of those things where I'm glad the first game was Baylor-Houston. So we had the nightcap. If it would have been the other way around, we'd have been, you'd have been, pouring your beer out and leaving early for that second game. But it was one of those things where, like you said, Joe, Houston was just overmatched.
And when you're down 25 in the first half, you only scored 20 points, Ed and Joanna, and you shoot 38% as a team. It was just, like you said, Ed, it was what Gonzaga was able to do defensively and from an offensive standpoint. They were able to do, like they did against Gonzaga last night, whatever they wanted to do. They went out on that court. They knew they were the superior team, as you mentioned, Ed, and they just went out there and showed it. They absolutely pummeled an excellent Houston Cougars team. That was a team that was 28-3 coming into that game. So they were no pushover. They made the Final Four for a reason. That's an excellent basketball team that they just pushed around and just imposed their will, did absolutely anything they wanted to, and they were the kings on the court that night and 2 nights later.
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately.
And, of course, as much as I dread to, fast forwarding to those 2 nights later, which was...
Put that graphic up, Joanna? Do you want to put that up?
Yes, I guess. Okay. National championship, night for Baylor and Gonzaga. And that was tough to watch. But I thought that once Gonzaga was able to kind of shorten that lead that Baylor had on them and going into halftime, that it was going to turn around. It seemed, they kept having a little bit of that yo-yo activity there, but Baylor they were just aggressive. They were faster, perfect, that amazing offense that you need. Baylor was just, the big dog on top of it all. And it just sucks and it pains me. I really wanted to cry last night when Gonzaga lost. But Gonzaga's perfect season came to an end. The last time a team had a perfect season was in 1976. And the first time that Baylor goes to a championship title game, Baylor wins it. So.
Yeah, that was a complete domination, guys. Baylor jumps out to a 9-0 lead, an 11-4 lead. They were up 16-4, 29-10, and they just never looked back. And even in the second half, when they could not score, they went about 6 minutes without scoring a basket. But Gonzaga was not able to cut into that lead because they knew they couldn't score. So, we're going to rely on our defense and our rebounding to get us through this 6-minute stretch where we couldn't score. And then all of a sudden, when they started scoring, then everything kind of came back together. And then Baylor kind of recaptured themselves, recentered themselves, refocused themselves. And then they went on to win by 16. That was a dominant performance offensively, defensively. From a rebounding standpoint, my gosh, 16 rebounds, 16 offensive rebounds, Ed and Joanna, to just 5 for Gonzaga. That was one of the main stats that I draw from that game, that they were just so strong on the offensive glass. And then, my goodness, that was one of the main, and then plus 16 overall rebounding, 38-22. They were just so dominant on the rebounding edge, and their defense was suffocating. They didn't let Gonzaga do anything last night. Nothing.
Yeah, that was another instance right there, and where the athleticism of Baylor was on full display. And I think, and Joanna, I have to say the Gonzaga, I'm not going to say it was smoke and mirrors with the perfect season, but, we talked about this on our show on Saturday. I, looked at their division, their conference, West Coast Conference, I think it is. And you got teams like Pacific and Loyola and San Diego. There's not what I would call a whole lot of resistance within the conference. And there's something to be said, and we look at what happened with the Big East this year, or the Big Ten, I should say. Michigan, they got 9 teams in. They beat the heck out of each other all through the season. But what that also does, it gives you some calluses on your skin, and when you get to those matches, and I know Gonzaga went out and they played a couple against Virginia and a couple other, top-rated teams, and they did well and beat them. But there's nothing like being night in and night out in that dogfight. So you get out of that comfort zone of playing, like I said, your Pacifics and your Portlands and different things like that. I just saw a team in Baylor they were like the street brawler, like bare knuckle fighters, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got a dude who was raised in the prim and, nice gym and always had the pretty gloves on and, the headgear and all that kind of stuff. When you get those two together, it's a different fight when you get out there in the street. And I just thought Baylor literally just took it to Gonzaga. And like Ed said, they were suffocating and Gonzaga had not experienced that all year. They haven't experienced that probably in the last couple of years, obviously because we had the shortened season last year, but they weren't in any fights like that last year. I guarantee you. And then through this stretch, they played some teams, like I said, they did not experience what Baylor brought to the table. And it's one thing, and I've seen this before, it's one thing to look at it on tape, and then all of a sudden you get out there either on the court or on the field. And then sometimes it even happens pre-game. There have been times when I've looked at somebody, I'm watching them, studying them all week. I'm like, okay, I think I can handle this, then all of a sudden you get out there and you're pre-game stretching and you're looking across and you're like, damn, that dude it's like, holy cow. And then you watch him, he looks like he can lift the house. And you're like, how am I going to handle that? And then you get out there in your first tussle with them, and it's like, you get back to the sideline, and all of a sudden they're pulling the pictures out and everything, and you whisper to the dude next to you, man, that dude is strong as hell. I got a long day in front of me, And I guarantee you, Gonzaga was, at their first time out or two, they were just like in a little bit of panic because they were like, damn, those dudes are fast. And they would never outwardly say it because, hey, we're Gonzaga, we're undefeated, But I guarantee you there was a little doubt early in that game, and you can tell confidence-wise, Gonzaga wasn't the same team from start of that game to the end of it. And that's, like I said, that comes sometimes just because of the speed and everything you're seeing on the other side. It can sometimes be intimidating.
And it also heard that Drew Timme was a non-factor pretty much the entire game, and then he was kind of hurt toward the end of the game. He had some issues with his left hip. So by the time they had addressed those issues, of course the game was out of hand. Of course, still by then. And then Jalen Suggs, he got in some foul trouble early, so he wasn't as effective as he was a couple of nights ago. Of course, hitting that game winner against UCLA, and then Joel Ayayi had 22 points a couple of nights ago against UCLA, 8 points in the national championship game. So again, from a defensive standpoint, Gonzaga is a team that averages 91 points per game this season. This season that just ended, they held them to 70 points, Ed and Joanna, 21 points below what they're averaging, what they usually get on a nightly basis. Just a dominant defensive performance. And again, so strong on the offensive boards and their guard play. All those seniors and juniors, some of probably the best guards in the nation. And they were on display last night from a defensive standpoint. They were all over the place, and they were just so disruptive, and nobody was hardly ever out of place from what I saw. It was an incredible game plan that they drew up the Baylor Bears, and that's why they're the national champions.
Yeah, true.
Sorry, Charles.
It pains me to say that, but no, I do recognize it. I see it, and I saw that yesterday. And as soon as like you said earlier, Ed Smith, once they had that blowout per se early out in the game, their confidence was shattered. They were not the same Gonzaga team that you're used to seeing throughout the season and throughout the tournament. Unfortunately, you saw that, how it affected them, unfortunately. So, and then that even benefited Baylor even more. So they were pummeled. Taylor went out there 4-4s and really ate Gonzaga alive, as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But congratulations to Baylor. They still, that they made history. Somebody was going to be making history nonetheless. So, congratulations to Gonzaga. Congratulations to Baylor.
You don't mean that, Joanne.
You don't mean that.
You don't mean that.
I do. I actually do.
I wouldn't. No, not me. I wouldn't. You beat my team. I don't care. I hope you never win another game in your life.
Yep.
It stings. But one thing I will say, it's Gonzaga has not gotten the credit or the recognition, actually until this season. for when it comes to college basketball. They've been on the eye. They've kind of just, okay, no, they didn't make it. And it's kind of, they just get tossed to the side. They had a light on them this tournament. And now from here on out, they're going to be recognized even more, and they're going to have more lights on them. Because I followed Gonzaga for many, many years. It was my dream school. Unfortunately, didn't get to go there. But I still, I just still follow them, and they're still my team. They're my school. And just throughout the years, how much they have improved, and still how much more further they can go ahead and make it. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to the women's championship, which took place Sunday, which was another, it was like rollover of Saturday night, really. It was Stanford and our local gals here, down in Tucson, U of A Wildcats. That was another one where I was actually thinking that U of A was not going to get so close as they did towards the end of that game. And it was just that one shot, and I thought that they had it until they didn't. And that really crushed my heart. And then that's the first time making it to as far as they have, and making it to the championship in their first, just like Baylor. So congratulations to these ladies for making it at least that far. They are coached by a previous WNBA player. So yes, congratulations to her as well. Yes. So that's amazing in her accomplishment at bringing the team this far. But Ed Smith, what is your takeaway from seeing Stanford and U of A in this last weekend?
I was really impressed. Nobody thought that. I think it was because AS or U of A, they had to beat UConn, didn't they, just to get there?
Yes.
And that was one of the, they were like an afterthought. I think they even got left out of the promotional video or something like that they were talking about. So you talk about disrespect. So, you go ahead and you get that game, you beat UConn, and there's, we're talking about there's no, nothing to be ashamed of when you get to the championship game and don't pull it off. But they showed themselves very well. Not a lot of people gave them any chance against Stanford. They took it down to the final shot. And I know if they had it to do all over again, there might have been a different shot taken. But, you can't deny that it was a magical season for them. And those ladies have nothing but should be nothing but proud of what they accomplished. It's tough, like I said, when you get to the final game and don't pull it off. But Stanford, once again, they show why they're the cream of the crop, and now they're almost becoming between them and a couple other schools are taking over the throne from UConn. But I love the women's college game because it's so fundamental, and I love to watch the game and just like I said, they make it exciting. There's no dunking and stuff like that, but there's a whole lot of fundamental and great basketball, and that's what I really appreciate about the women's game.
I agree with you, Ed. For the University of Arizona, the Lady Wildcats, to get to where they were, to have to beat the juggernauts, UConn, the Lady Huskies, to get to the national championship. What an incredible accomplishment in that feat. And yeah, it was disrespectful for them to not be included in that promotional video. whatever happened with that is just absolutely just a hard decision. Whoever decided not to put them in there was just so stupid. And then I applaud Adia Barnes for what she did, for her to put up the middle fingers and say, F everybody. It's us against the world. She got so much flack and so much criticism for that. I have no qualms with her expressing her feelings to her ladies and letting her girls know, okay, it's us against the world. Forget everybody. So what? We didn't get in the video. We're here we're here in the Final Four. We're going to the national championship. We came up 1 point short. They didn't shoot that well. They shot 28%. They got out rebounded by 18. So a lot of things didn't go their way correctly, Joanna and Ed, but still, for the fact that they came 1 point short of becoming, or 2 points shy of becoming national champions, but still to get there in a year that was ravaged by COVID and all these things that Adia Barnes and her team had to go through to get to where they were, to get to San Antonio and be on the cusp of a national championship. I'm proud of those ladies for what they did down there in Tucson, and the future is bright for Adia Barnes in that program.
Absolutely.
No. Definitely. And that this is the first time since 1992 that a Pac-12 team is crowned champion in women's basketball.
Wow, that's a long time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was
between
California.
UConn and Tennessee dominating over the last 20 plus years. Yeah.